Admiral Kim Ji-woo stood before the massive holographic display that dominated the command center of Starbase Omega-7. The blue-green image of New Haven Colony should have been rotating slowly, showing the bustling cities and orbital platforms that housed 2.3 million human souls. Instead, there was nothing but empty space and the cold silence of dead communication channels. "Still nothing, Admiral," reported Lieutenant Cha Min-soo from his monitoring station. "It's been 3 days since their last scheduled transmission. All automated systems, all emergency beacons, everything is just gone." Ji-woo felt a chill run down her spine. New Haven wasn't just another colony. It was humanity's crown jewel in the outer rim, a thriving world with universities, art galleries, and families who had made the dangerous journey to build something beautiful at the edge of known space. Her own sister June had moved there 2 years ago with her husband and their twin daughters. The command center's massive doors hissed open, and Captain Park Min-ho burst through, his usually calm demeanor shattered. Sweat dripped from his forehead. Despite the climate-controlled environment, and his hands shook as he clutched a datapad. "Admiral," he gasped, struggling to catch his breath. We've recovered the final transmission from New Haven's orbital defense platform. The quantum relay managed to get one last burst through hyperspace before what, Captain?" Ji-woo's voice was steady, but everyone in the command center could hear the underlying tension. Min-ho activated the central holographic projector. The peaceful emptiness of space was replaced by a recording that made everyone's blood freeze. The camera showed New Haven's beautiful blue atmosphere, its 3 silver moons hanging like pearls in the black void. But descending through the atmosphere came something that belonged in nightmares. Massive alien vessels, each the size of a city district, moved with predatory grace toward the planet's surface. Their hulls were a sickly green-black color that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. No running lights, no identification markers, no attempt at communication. They moved like hunters who had already decided their prey was dead. "My God," whispered Commander Seo Yebin from the tactical station. "How many ships is that?" "Computer analysis shows over 300 vessels in the first wave alone," Min-ho replied, his voice hollow. "Each one is roughly the size of our largest battleships, but the design is completely unknown. They're not in any of our databases." The recording continued, showing the alien ships taking positions over New Haven's major population centers. For a brief moment there was silence. Then hell erupted across the planet's surface. Beams of pure energy lanced down from the alien vessels, each one capable of vaporizing entire city blocks. The orbital camera picked up the thermal signatures as New Haven's cities, places with names like New Seoul, Little Busan, and Harmony Bay, simply ceased to exist. The energy weapons were so powerful that they turned sand into glass and concrete into vapor. "The children," someone whispered in the command center. Ji-woo realized it was her own voice. Within 2 hours, every major settlement on New Haven had been reduced to glowing craters. The aliens didn't land troops, didn't seem interested in conquest or resources. They had come for one purpose only: complete extermination. "Did anyone escape?" Ji-woo asked, though she already knew the answer. "No, ma'am. The alien ships used some kind of orbital interdiction field. Nothing got off the planet. The evacuation shuttles, the emergency pods, the orbital stations. Everything was destroyed within the first 30 minutes. Ji-woo closed her eyes, trying to push away the image of her sister's family running for shelters that would never protect them from weapons that powerful. When she opened them again, her gaze could have melted steel. "Who are they?" she demanded. "Intelligence. Managed to decode part of their final broadcast," Min-ho said, his fingers dancing across his datapad. "They call themselves the Karathi Empire. We've never had any contact with them before. They're from beyond the rim, in sectors we haven't even mapped yet." "What did they broadcast?" Min-ho's face went pale. "It was a message to their home fleet. Rough translation reads, 'Cleansing of infected system complete. Human plague contained. Returning to await next target coordinates.'" The command center erupted in angry voices. Officers jumped to their feet, some shouting for immediate retaliation, others demanding to know why their intelligence networks had never detected such a massive threat. Ji-woo raised her hand, and silence fell like a hammer blow. "Plague," she repeated softly. "They think we're a plague." "Admiral," said Commander Seo, "long-range sensors are picking up hyperspace signatures. The alien fleet is withdrawing toward the galactic rim." Jiwoo nodded slowly, her mind already working through the implications. This wasn't a random attack or a territorial dispute. This was genocide, pure and simple. The Karathi Empire had studied humanity, tracked their expansion, and decided that human civilization was something to be eradicated like a disease. "Send an immediate priority transmission to Earth Command," she ordered, her voice carrying the weight of 2.3 million dead souls. "Tell them that New Haven colony has been completely destroyed by an unknown alien empire calling itself the Karathi. Tell them that every man, woman, and child is dead. And tell them that we know exactly who's responsible." As the transmission raced toward Earth at faster-than-light speeds, Jiwoo stared at the empty space where New Haven had been. The aliens had made a critical error in their calculations. They thought they were dealing with just another weak species that would cower after a show of force. They had no idea that humanity's greatest strength had always been its response to tragedy. The Karathi Empire was about to learn what happened when you killed human children. The emergency klaxons wailed across Geneva as President Lee Sung-min's motorcade raced through the empty streets toward the Terran Defense Council chambers. Every government leader on Earth had received the same horrifying message just 4 hours ago. New Haven colony was gone, and 2.3 million human souls had been murdered by an unknown alien empire. Inside the marble halls of the council building, representatives from every nation, every colony, and every space habitat were gathering via holographic projection. The usual diplomatic chatter was replaced by grim silence as the footage from New Haven played on repeat across dozens of screens. President Sung-min entered the main chamber, his face a mask of controlled fury. Behind him walked Defense Minister Cho Hyejin, her tablet already loaded with military assessments that would change the course of galactic history. The massive circular chamber, built to house peaceful debates about trade routes and colony rights, now felt like a war room. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sung-min began, his voice carrying clearly to every corner of the chamber and every connected world, "we are here because humanity has suffered its greatest tragedy since the resource wars of the 22nd century. New Haven. Colony is gone. Every man, woman, and child has been exterminated by an alien species that considers us a plague to be cleansed." The holographic displays around the chamber showed the names and faces of the dead scrolling endlessly. Teachers, engineers, artists, children who would never grow up to see the stars their parents had died trying to reach. 2.3 million of our people, Sung-min continued, his voice growing harder with each word. Murdered without warning, without negotiation, without even the courtesy of a declaration of war. The Karathi Empire has shown us exactly what they think human life is worth. Foreign Minister Yoon Dae-ho stood up from his seat, his face pale but determined. "Mr. President, have we attempted any diplomatic contact with this Karathi Empire? Perhaps there's been some misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding," interrupted Admiral Kim Woo-jin, the head of Stellar Command, as he activated a tactical display. "Our xenology experts have analyzed their final transmission. The Karathi refer to human expansion as an infection. That must be sterilized. They've been watching us for decades, planning this attack. New Haven wasn't their first target. It was their test run." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Representatives demanded immediate action, while others called for defensive measures to protect the remaining colonies. Through it all, Defense Minister Cho Hyejin remained silent, her fingers dancing across her tablet as she calculated numbers that would reshape the galaxy. President Sung-min raised his hand, and the chamber fell silent again. "Defense Minister Cho, what are our options?" Cho stood slowly, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was about to propose. "Mr. President, I'm requesting immediate authorization for Operation Thunderstrike. This isn't about revenge, it's about survival. The Karathi have shown they intend to exterminate our entire species. We need to mobilize everything we have." "Define everything," said Colonial Representative Park Ji-hoon, representing the Outer Rim settlements. Every shipyard from Earth to the Centauri colonies will be converted to military production. Every civilian vessel with military potential will be conscripted. Every reserve fleet will be activated. Every mothballed warship will be brought back to service. Cho's voice grew stronger with each word. We're talking about the complete militarization of human civilization. Minister Yoon Dae-ho leaned forward, in his chair. How many ships are we talking about exactly? The chamber held its breath as Cho consulted her tablet one final time. 700,000 warships, sir. The largest armada in galactic history. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the alien observers, representatives from the Centaurian Trade Federation, the Vegan Republic, and other species who had grown comfortable with humanity's diplomatic approach, seemed stunned by the sheer scale of the proposed response. 700,000, whispered Representative Lim Sora from the Mars colonies. That's more ships than some species have ever built in their entire history. It's also every combat-capable vessel we can field, Cho replied grimly. Battleships, carriers, destroyers, frigates, even converted civilian craft with military modifications. We're stripping the defenses from every human world to build this fleet. Through the diplomatic channels, alien observers began frantically transmitting reports back to their homeworlds. The peaceful, negotiation-loving humans they thought they knew were about to become something entirely different. President Sungmin stood up, his presence commanding absolute attention. The galaxy has grown comfortable thinking they know us. They see our diplomacy, our trade agreements, our cultural exchanges, and they think we're soft. They mistake our choice to be civilized for weakness. They forget that we conquered our own homeworld before we ever reached for the stars. The massive screens around the chamber shifted to show images of human colonies across known space. Bustling cities, thriving settlements, children playing in parks under alien suns. Every one of these worlds is vulnerable to the same fate as New Haven. Every human family is at risk as long as the Korathi Empire exists. Admiral Kim stood up from his seat. Mr. President, mobilizing a fleet of this size will take months, the logistics alone. Then we have months to prepare, Sungmin interrupted. The Korathi think they're dealing with another weak species that will cower after one devastating attack. They have no idea what humanity becomes when our children are threatened. The vote was called, and one by one every representative cast their ballot. When the final count appeared on the chamber's main screen, it was unanimous. Every human world, every colony, every orbital station had voted for total war. As the representatives began filing out to begin the greatest military mobilization in human history, President Sungmin remained at the podium, staring at the images of New Haven's destruction. The Korathi Empire had awakened something they didn't understand, the fury of a species that had spent centuries learning to be better than their violent nature. Now they were about to remember why they had needed to learn that lesson in the first place. Commander Han Ju-won stood on the bridge of the massive dreadnought Incheon's Fury, watching through the reinforced viewing ports as the greatest fleet in galactic history assembled around her. Rally Point Alpha had been chosen for its remote location in deep space, far from any inhabited systems. But even here, the gravitational effects of so many ships were creating visible distortions in the starfield. The Incheon's Fury itself was a monument to human engineering. 3 kilometers of armored hull bristling with particle cannons, missile tubes and experimental weapons that could crack a moon in half. But it was just one ship among 700,000, and from her command chair, Ju-won could see vessels stretching in every direction until they disappeared into the darkness of space. Navigation Officer Lee Dong-yun, give me a status report, she ordered, her voice calm despite the magnitude of what they were about to unleash. Ma'am, we have battleship formations extending 40,000 kilometers in every direction. The carrier groups alone would dwarf most species' entire space forces. And the new experimental ships... Dong-yun paused, consulting his instruments. The gravity sensors are going crazy. We've got ships out there using technology that barely exists outside of research labs. Through the massive viewport, Ju-won could see some of those experimental vessels. The new Tokyo's Vengeance was a kilometer-long weapons platform that existed solely to house humanity's first planet-killer cannon. The carrier Busan's Promise could launch 10,000 fighter craft simultaneously, and lurking at the edge of the formation were the ghost ships, stealth vessels so advanced that even their own fleet could barely detect them. "Commander," called out Communications Officer Park Sunwoo, "we're receiving final confirmations from all fleet commanders. Captain Song Minji from the Soul's Wrath reports her battle group is ready. Admiral Chen Yuna's carrier division is in position. Even the civilian volunteers are reporting battle-ready status. Those civilian volunteers were perhaps the most terrifying part of the entire armada. Cargo haulers converted into missile platforms, luxury cruise ships transformed into troop transports, even mining vessels equipped with weaponized drilling lasers. When humanity had voted for total war, they had meant it literally. Every ship that could mount a weapon or carry supplies had been pressed into service." "Ma'am," interrupted Tactical Officer Kim Soyeon, "long-range sensors are detecting alien observation posts throughout this sector. Looks like half the galaxy is watching to see what we do next." Ju-won smiled grimly. For 2 centuries, humanity had been the diplomatic species, the ones who negotiated trade deals, mediated conflicts, and tried to find peaceful solutions to galactic problems. Other species had grown comfortable with that image, thinking they understood what humans were capable of. "Let them watch," she said. "Open a channel to Captain Song Minji." The holographic display flickered to life, showing the bridge of the Soul's Wrath. Captain Song Minji appeared, her face set with the same cold determination that had infected every human in the fleet. "Captain Song, what's your final ship count?" Ju-won asked. "Ma'am, final count is confirmed at 700,000 vessels. Every ship from Earth to the Rim colonies, plus about 50,000 civilian craft that volunteered for combat duty. We've got dreadnoughts, carriers, destroyers, frigates, and things that don't have classification codes yet because we built them specifically for this mission." The scope of it was almost impossible to comprehend. The largest battle in galactic history had involved maybe 5,000 ships. This fleet was 140 times larger than that. It represented the complete militarization of human civilization. Every resource, every shipyard, every piece of advanced technology humanity possessed, all focused on a single goal. "All fleets report ready for hyperspace jump," Song continued. "The navigators have plotted our approach to Karathi space. We'll be arriving in 17 different systems simultaneously." Ju-won nodded and turned to her communications officer. "Open a channel to all ships in the fleet. Broadcast on all frequencies, military, civilian, and diplomatic. I want everyone in the galaxy to hear this." The communications array of the Incheon's Fury was powerful enough to punch through hyperspace interference and reach every inhabited system within 100 light-years. As the channel opened, 700,000 ships fell silent, waiting for the words that would announce humanity's transformation from diplomats to destroyers. "To the Karathi Empire," Ju-won began, her voice carrying across space to every species that had grown comfortable with humanity's peaceful nature. "You wanted to see what we're capable of when pushed too far. You murdered our children, destroyed our colony, and declared us a plague to be cleansed. Today you learn why every species in this galaxy whispers our name in the dark." Through the tactical displays, she could see alien observation posts throughout the sector suddenly going offline, as various species decided they didn't want to be associated with whatever was about to happen. "New Haven's children cry out for justice," she continued. "Today they receive it. To every species watching this transmission, remember that humanity tried peace first. What comes next is what happens when peace isn't enough." Lieutenant Nam. Seojin looked up from his sensor console, his face pale. "Commander, the alien observation posts are shutting down across the entire sector. Even our allies are pulling back their monitoring stations." "Good," Ju-won replied, settling back into her command chair. "They should be scared. We've spent 2 centuries showing the galaxy our civilized face. Now they get to see what we were before we learned to be civilized." She opened the fleet-wide. "Channel 1 final time. All ships, this is Fleet Commander Han Ju-won. Jump the fleet. Destination Karathi space. Show them what happens when you kill human children." The hyperspace engines of 700,000 warships ignited simultaneously, tearing holes in reality itself. The gravitational shock wave from so many ships entering hyperspace at once would be detected by every species within 1,000 light-years. As the armada vanished into the twisted dimension of hyperspace, heading toward Karathi territory at faster-than-light speeds, the galaxy held its breath. Humanity was no longer the peaceful diplomatic species they thought they knew. The Karathi Empire was about to face the full fury of a species that had conquered death, distance, and their own violent nature, and was now choosing to remember why they had needed to conquer it in the first place. The Karathi homeworld of Zerath Prime had stood unconquered for over 2,000 years. Its orbital defense platforms could destroy entire fleets, and its planetary shields had never been breached. The Karathi military commanders felt secure in their crystalline towers, believing their ancient technology made them untouchable. They were wrong. General Kang Sunwoo watched from the bridge of his flagship, Daegu's Hammer, as 700,000 human warships dropped out of hyperspace simultaneously around Zerath Prime. The sight was like watching stars being born, thousands of points of light appearing in perfect formation, surrounding the Karathi homeworld in a sphere of death. "Sir, enemy defense platforms are powering up," reported Lieutenant Colonel Park Ji-won from the tactical station. "They're targeting our lead ships with some kind of plasma cannon system." "Show them what real firepower looks like," Sunwoo ordered calmly. The human fleet opened fire as one. Particle beams, quantum torpedoes, and experimental energy weapons struck the Karathi defense grid with the force of a collapsing star. The ancient orbital platforms, each one the size of a small moon, simply vaporized under the concentrated assault. "My God," whispered Navigator Choi Seung-ho, staring at his displays. "Their entire outer defense ring is gone. Just gone." The Karathi had built their defenses to handle attacks from a few hundred ships at most. They had never imagined facing an armada that could focus the combined firepower of an entire galactic civilization into a single coordinated strike. On the planet's surface, Karathi military leaders watched in horror as their impenetrable planetary shields flickered and died under the sustained bombardment. Emergency alarms wailed through their capital city as buildings that had stood for millennia began to crumble. "General," came the voice of Admiral Lim Yuna over the communications channel, "my hunter-killer groups are engaging fleeing Karathi vessels in the outer system. They're trying to escape through hyperspace." "Don't let a single ship get away," Sunwoo replied, his voice hard as steel. "The galaxy needs to see what happens when you commit genocide against humanity." Admiral Lim's task force was a nightmare of efficiency. Her ships moved through the Karathi system like predators, using advanced sensors to track down every vessel. Trying to flee, the experimental stealth ships revealed themselves just long enough to destroy their targets, then vanished back into the darkness. "Sir, we've got civilian transports trying to evacuate the capital city," reported communications. Officer Jian Min-hyuk, "Let them go," Sunwoo ordered. "We're not here to murder innocents. Target military installations only." But the Karathi military wasn't going down without a fight. From hidden bunkers deep beneath Zerath Prime's surface, massive defense cannons emerged, firing beams of pure energy at the human fleet. Several smaller human ships took direct hits, their shields flaring and hulls buckling under the assault. "Sir, we're taking casualties," reported Damage Control Officer Yu Hyejin. "The destroyers, Ulsan's Pride and Gwangju's Resolve, have suffered major damage." Sunwoo's face remained impassive, but his hands clenched into fists. Every human life lost was precious, but they had come too far to stop now. "Target those surface installations. I want them silenced." The human dreadnoughts turned their planet-killer weapons toward Zerath Prime's surface, where the massive energy beam struck. Entire mountain ranges simply ceased to exist, leaving behind glowing craters that could be seen from orbit. "Sir," interrupted Sergeant Oh Ji-hoon from the intelligence station, "we're receiving a transmission from the Karathi High Command. They're trying to surrender." The main screen flickered to life, showing a group of tall insectoid aliens in elaborate ceremonial armor. Their leader, identified as Supreme Commander Vexthak, spoke in perfect human standard through translation. "Software, Human Fleet Commander, we acknowledge your superior firepower, We are prepared to discuss terms of surrender and reparations for the New Haven incident." The bridge fell silent. Every human officer waited for their general's response, knowing that this moment would define how the galaxy remembered humanity's return to war. "Too late for that," Sun Wu replied coldly, his voice carrying across all frequencies. "You had a chance to negotiate before you murdered 2.3 million of our people. You had a chance to show mercy before you called us a plague. Now you face the consequences of your choices." The bombardment resumed with even greater intensity. Within hours, every major Korathi military installation had been reduced to smoking ruins. Their once mighty fleet was scattered debris floating in space, and their planetary government had collapsed into chaos. Captain Bei Suyung stood on the bridge of her destroyer, Mokpo's Vengeance, watching streams of Korathi civilians fleeing, their burning capital city in whatever vehicles they could find. The sight reminded her of old historical footage from Earth's ancient wars, but she felt no satisfaction in the destruction. "Captain," said her first officer, Lieutenant Kim Jin-wan, "the civilian evacuation is proceeding smoothly. Our rules of engagement are holding. Military targets only." "Good," Suyung replied, watching a group of Korathi children being loaded onto an evacuation transport. "This isn't about conquest or revenge. This is about making sure no species in this galaxy ever thinks they can slaughter human families without facing the full consequences." Within 72 hours, the Korathi Empire, a civilization that had dominated 3 star systems for over 2 millennia, simply ceased to exist as a military power. Their fleets were destroyed, their worlds occupied by human peacekeeping forces, and their leadership captured for war crimes trials. But the real message wasn't sent to the Korathi. It was sent to every species in the galaxy that had grown comfortable, thinking they understood humanity's limits. The diplomatic, peace-loving humans they thought they knew had just demonstrated they could dismantle an entire interstellar empire in 3 days when their children were threatened. As General Sun Wu watched the last Korathi military stronghold surrender, he opened a channel to the entire human fleet. Mission accomplished. Zerath Prime is secured and the Korathi Empire's military capacity has been eliminated. New Haven has been avenged. The cheers that erupted across 700,000 warships could probably be heard across half the galaxy. Fleet Admiral Zhang Hyunwoo walked through the shattered remains of what had once been the most powerful throne room in 3 star systems. The Korathi Imperial Palace had been a monument to alien supremacy, with crystalline walls that reached toward the sky and holographic displays showing their conquered territories. Now it served as humanity's temporary headquarters, its broken spires a reminder of how quickly empires could fall. The trials had ended just hours ago. 47 Korathi military leaders, including Supreme Commander Vexthak himself, had been found guilty of genocide and crimes against sentient life. The evidence was overwhelming. Not just New Haven, but records showing the Korathi had been planning to exterminate human colonies across the Rim for decades. "Admiral," called Commander Shin Yunji as she approached through the rubble-strewn hull, her boots crunching on fragments of alien artwork. "We're receiving priority transmissions from across the galaxy. The Galactic Council is demanding immediate emergency talks about our military actions." Hyun Woo turned from the massive window that looked out over the Korathi capital city. Below, human peacekeeping forces were helping alien civilians rebuild their infrastructure, while ensuring that no military installations remained functional. It was a careful balance, showing strength while maintaining humanity's moral authority. "Me guess," he said with a bitter smile. "The same Galactic Council that ignored our warnings about aggressive species in the Rim? The same council that refused to investigate when 3 human cargo ships disappeared in Korathi space last year?" "Yes, sir. The Centaurian Trade Federation is particularly vocal. They're calling our response disproportionate and demanding we withdraw from Korathi territory immediately." Hyunwoo laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Disproportionate. They think destroying a civilization that committed genocide is disproportionate." He moved to the command console that his technicians had set up among the alien ruins. "Tell them they can have their meeting. But first, the galaxy is going to hear humanity's new policy." The communications array built into the former palace was incredibly advanced, capable of broadcasting across multiple star systems simultaneously. As Hyunwoo activated the system, he knew that his words would reach every inhabited world, every space station, every alien government that had grown comfortable with humanity's peaceful reputation. "Patch me through to all frequencies, military, civilian, diplomatic, and commercial," he ordered. "I want every sentient being in known space to hear this." The transmission began, carrying Hyunwoo's image and voice to billions of alien viewers across the galaxy. On the bridge of vegan Republic ships, Centaurian trade vessels, and countless other spacecraft, alien crews gathered around their screens to hear what the humans would say now that they had revealed their true military power. "To every species, every empire, every government in known space," Hyunwoo began, his voice steady and uncompromising, "today you learned what humanity is truly capable of when our people are murdered in cold blood. The Karathi Empire thought they could exterminate an entire human colony and face no consequences. They believed we were too weak, too diplomatic, too civilized to respond with the force they deserved. On distant worlds, alien leaders watched nervously as the human admiral continued. The Karathi had been one of the most militarily advanced species in the galaxy, and humanity had crushed them in less than a week. They were wrong about us," Hyunwoo said, gesturing toward the ruins around him. "We are not the diplomatic weaklings. You thought you knew. We are not the peaceful traders who can be pushed around without consequences. We are the descendants of Earth's apex predators, and when our children are threatened, we remember exactly how to hunt." In the Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime, alien representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The Karathi delegates' chair sat empty. Their entire government had been dissolved, their military scattered, their leaders awaiting execution. "For 200 years, Hyunwoo continued, humanity has chosen peace over war, negotiation over annihilation, diplomacy over destruction. We built trade relationships, cultural exchanges, and mutual defense pacts. We helped settle disputes between species and prevented countless conflicts through patient dialogue." The transmission showed footage of human peacekeepers helping rebuild Karathi cities, human medical teams treating wounded alien civilians, human engineers working alongside former enemies to restore power and water to damaged areas. "But understand this," his voice hardened. "Our choice to be civilized was exactly that, a choice. When the Karathi murdered 2.3 million human men, women, and children, they took that choice away from us. They forced us to remember what we were before we learned to be better." At that moment, President Lee Sung-min's voice joined the transmission from Earth, his words carrying the weight of humanity's entire civilization. "The Karathi Empire called us a plague to be cleansed. They sent hundreds of ships to glass our colonies and murder our families. Today their empire no longer exists. Their military is destroyed, their leaders await justice." Across the galaxy, alien military commanders began frantically reviewing their own defensive capabilities, wondering if they could withstand the kind of assault that had brought down the Karathi in 3 days. "Let this be a lesson to anyone who thinks humanity can be intimidated or destroyed," Sung-min continued. "We conquered death itself with our medical technology. We conquered distance with our faster-than-light travel. We conquered our own violent nature through centuries of learning to be better. But touch our children again and we'll show you why we needed to conquer that violence in the first place." The broadcast shifted to show images of the human fleet, 700,000 warships still patrolling Karathi space, their weapons trained on anyone who might threaten human interests. Then it showed human colonies across the galaxy, now protected by expanded defense fleets and orbital weapons platforms. "The Karathi Empire learned this lesson too late," Hyunwoo concluded. "Don't make their mistake. Humanity tried peace first. What you saw happen to the Karathi is what happens when peace isn't enough." As the transmission ended, the galaxy fell silent. Trade routes that had been bustling with activity suddenly became quiet as alien merchants decided they didn't want to risk offending humanity. Military buildups that had been planned near human space were quietly cancelled. Diplomatic requests that had been ignored for months were suddenly given top priority. Commander Shin Yunji looked up from her communications console. "Sir, we're receiving surrender offers from 3 different pirate groups that have been raiding human cargo ships. The Vegan Republic is requesting immediate trade negotiations, and the Galactic Council, they're asking if they can schedule their emergency meeting at our convenience. Hyunwoo nodded slowly. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity wasn't the weak diplomatic species they had thought. When pushed to their limits, humans became something far more terrifying than any alien empire had imagined possible. The species that had once seen humans as useful but harmless partners now understood the truth. Humanity had been choosing to be civilized. When that choice was taken from them, they became the apex predators their ancestors had always been. And every species in the galaxy would remember that lesson for generations to come. The end.